Welcome to the 7th episode of the Generation Gap Book Reviews. I'm Christy, the mom.
And I'm Lena, the daughter.
You always say that like there's more coming. I'm Lena, the daughter. I feel like there should be an end. Like, I'm Lena, the daughter.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, in this episode, we are going to review a middle grade book called Al Capone Does My Shirts. And who's it by, Lena?
Gennifer Choldenko.
Yay!
Or Dell or whatever.
There's no, it's not, it's, there's an O at the end.
Oh, Choldenko.
So you don't really remember when you first heard about this book, do you?
Apparently not, because I thought you recommended it to me. I thought there was something before that.
It was in one of the Limoncello library books. You know how Limoncello tends to reference book titles a lot?
Yeah.
It was one of those.
Really?
Yep.
Oh.
I don't remember which book. It might have been the first one, actually.
Did you go looking for it after you saw it, or what?
No, I didn't. It stood out to me like kind of an oddball book name.
Al Capone Does My Shirts.
And I don't know if I looked it up then or what, but I remember that after that, I saw it at like Goodwill. Every time we were at a Goodwill and I looked through the books, because every time we go to Goodwill, I look through the books.
And you always noticed it.
It was always there. It was like everywhere after that.
It's like when you get a car and then you notice that car everywhere.
Cognitive bias or whatever that's called.
I sure don't know.
So anyway, and at the time I remember thinking that it looked like it would be some kind of silly kids thing.
Huh.
I don't remember what finally. I think I just basically one day just finally said, you know what? It's everywhere. I might as well get it and get it from the Goodwill or whatever and read it. And if I had noticed, apparently I didn't notice that it was a Newbery Award winner, which kind of goes against the idea of it just being a silly flighty thing. But anyway. But then, yes, I did read it, and then I told you I thought you should read it. And then...
Well, yeah, last 2023, or the end of book club for early 2024, they had like, oh, what do you want to do next year? And then she had like a bunch of different books we could pick through. And I don't know if that was one of them or if I recommended it.
I'm pretty sure she asked you if you had any recommendations before that.
Yeah.
And we together came up with a few ideas, and this was one of them. And I told you this should be one of them. And
yeah.
She might have then had it on that cart or whatever. Yeah. But if she did, it might have been because of the fact that you.
Well, I don't know, but she had a lot of books. It was probably like 50.
This book is definitely for 12 to 14-year-olds or so. Yeah. Middle grade, I think, is actually more like 10 to 12, but it's somewhere in there. And the main character, the synopsis then, is that there's a boy, 12 or so years old.
12, yeah. 7th grade.
Whose name is Moose Flanagan. I mean, it's not his real first name.
Moose is not. It's Matthew.
Thank you. Lena just finished it, literally today.
When we're recording this the same day.
I have not read it. It was almost a year ago that I read it. But Moose Flanagan and his family, mom, dad, and sister, moved to Alcatraz in 1935 because his dad is going to be working there as a prison guard. And now Moose has to get used to a new school and new people on the island, some, friends that he's able to make and some that are not so friendly. And he has to keep his sister out of trouble, which is more difficult than it sounds. She's actually older than him, but she's
mentally ill.
It's before the time I think they had a word for it, but she's basically autistic.
Yeah.
And then there's a prison warden who imposes some pretty strict rules, even though his own daughter, who's around Moose's age, breaks them all the time and tries to entice him to break them. So all of this he's basically trying to deal with while he's living on an island that is populated by criminals.
Yay! Criminals.
Yay, criminals. Well, that'll be a good sound clip to pull out of this podcast. Lena saying, yay, criminals.
Yeah, just clip that part and out of context.
We started having titles for these podcasts that weren't just the names of the book.
Yay, criminals!
Something kind of oddball or silly that we out of context that we said during the podcast, and this one would definitely be yay, criminals. So, Lena,
yes.
What did you like about this book?
Well, it was kind of interesting because all the characters had like had a very different personality. Like it was very obvious, and it was like they were all very different. Um, which I enjoyed. And I liked the relationship between Moose and his sister. Like it was pretty sweet. Um,
What
there's
about what about his mom?
his mom. I don't know what to say about his mom. I don't. I mean, she was interesting.
She had her own personality, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's for sure.
Yeah, his mom, she basically is in denial about her daughter's
Mental state.
mental state, and grasps at everything that she can think of that's a cure, and some things that are really silly or
Oh yeah.
outlandish.
Like.
And in a way that's really it's detrimental to her own mental health.
Mhm.
She's not handling it all very well.
No.
I felt I liked the characters too. I think I'm on the same track as you on what I liked about it. The author did a really good job of making me feel connected to the
Oh
characters,
yeah, definitely.
and I felt I felt a lot of emotions while I was reading this
Oh, it
book.
was so emotional. Very emotional. Uh,
What did you think? What was the warden's daughter's name? Was it Piper?
the warden daughter?
Warden's daughter.
Yeah, Piper.
What did you think of her?
She came on very strong. I feel like it's hard to say for the first just cuz this is only the first book, but what I know of her it's I have very mixed emotions for
She
her.
drove me crazy.
For there were times where I'm just like, okay, she's going off again.
I I, I kind of hate that kind of a character in a book.
Yeah.
Is there anything you didn't like about the book?
Yeah. I'm really bad with conflict, and it felt like there was a lot of like yelling at people in it. And I don't know if that's because like there was capital letters and that maybe makes it feel like stronger to me. But
So
like
just the regular font and an exclamation point wouldn't have stressed you out as much as all
oh, it was.
caps.
I mean, it's worse with the capital letters, but like it's still the conflict and stuff was like ooh in my head. It's just I don't know.
What
I
was the conflict between?
like people getting in trouble and like stuff.
Just random people in the book getting in
No,
trouble?
like
Prisoners?
like the children getting in trouble for
Oh,
things they're doing.
yeah. See, there's something about the kids on this island that just they're kind of left on their own a lot,
Yeah, they don't really have somebody to watch them a lot.
and they're not necessarily the most well behaved kids.
No.
Not just Piper, really. And Moose is basically tasked with keeping track of his sister a lot,
Yeah,
and considering that she's fairly severely autistic, it's
it's
kind
kind of
of a tall
difficult.
ask. But what did you? I know you mentioned earlier you really liked their relationship. Did you say anything about the relationship besides just that you liked it? What was it you told me earlier that you liked about their relationship?
That he's protective of her. So like I thought that was kind of nice.
And that
And
like
oh, and that people basically kind of tell him that like Natalie likes him like the most out
like
of like
she seems to be most connected with him and
yeah.
bonded has bonded most with him, which is kind of neat.
And also I was confused like a lot of the book, and I feel like that was also why I got so emotional. Like I cried several times.
She cried out of confusion.
I some people will understand that and some people won't, but like it's just I don't know
Maybe
why,
I
but
think I can understand it, but not over a book and not over this book. Because what you told me
I
afterward that
just
you were
was so
confused
confused.
by confused me that it was so confusing to you. Even after we discussed it, you're still confused, and I don't know why it's confusing.
I feel like it didn't go into a lot of it, and it feel like it so that stuff got brushed off, and I was just like
Maybe because he didn't want anybody to know about it. He was keeping it a secret. That's why it got brushed off.
oh well, I guess I don't
Was that the only thing you didn't really like about it? Emotions and or
conflict and
conflict and
confusion. Some of the things that the characters did just frustrated me. Some of them. I feel like there's something else that I just can't think about, but no, I think that might be it.
for my part, there wasn't very much that I didn't like about it. I mean, I kind of wanted to throttle his mom sometimes, but I
Oh
also
my gosh.
understood.
Yeah.
I can't. I felt for her, and I really couldn't say that I would be
But like
necessarily be a lot. I would be somewhat different just because my personality is very different. But
she also kind of pushed Al She also kind
Al
of.
as in Al Capone? What? She pushed him?
No.
Spoiler!
No, I mean, she also kind of pushed Moose away a bit. So, like, yeah.
She spent most of her energy, it seemed like, on Natalie.
Yeah.
Which, again, is a very common
It's
thing.
understood.
But I really wanted to sit her down and give her a good talking to sometimes.
She
Same with
would
Piper.
totally
I would put
listen to
Piper
you.
right next to her and be like, just shape up, young lady. But overall, none of that was an issue I had with the book. It actually was just, it was well written characters.
Yeah, that's
Characters that
true.
I really connected, or that I connected with, or just, but they were well drawn. And I remember thinking partway through, at least, that, man, they really made a big deal out of Al Capone. I mean,
Yeah, I
obviously, it's the
mean,
name of it's in the book title.
it's a big deal in the book, but I think that's just because he's a really popular criminal, I guess.
He's a well known historical figure, and but they, of all the prisoners they had on Alcatraz, he was the one that they knew his name, and they were, the kids were like obsessed with him.
And Machine Gun Kelly. That's who I also
I forgot
remember
about
seeing
that
a
one.
lot.
But yeah, so most of the book he was just sort of this abstract figure, but then I'm not going to spoil anything. But in the end, he really did come into it more than I
Yeah,
expected.
he played a role.
Okay, before we get to our ratings, do you have anything else you want to say?
It was a good book, and I went into the book not knowing like anything about what it was about. I don't know why I didn't think to read like the synopsis on the back of the book before I read it. All I knew was Alcatraz was a part of it.
She didn't know Al Capone was a real person.
Okay. See, yeah, I didn't. I knew the book was called Al Capone Does My Shirts, but I thought that was like the main character or something. And I said something
So
about
you
it.
just figured it was a book about somebody doing laundry.
I don't really know what I thought. I went into it not knowing anything about it. I mean, I mentioned it at like church once in Sunday school, and like one of the teachers was like thinking, well, she said something about him being like a criminal or a gangster or whatever, and I'm just like, huh? And like internally, I'm just like, wait, what? I didn't know that, but I know now.
Now you know he was a real person
He was a real person,
back in the day.
like 90 years ago. Well, I don't know when he died, but like,
My gosh, this book took place 90 years
yeah,
ago.
I know. That's what I was
This
like.
is
I was reading it, and I was like thinking about it, and I was like, I have to put to mind that they're not. It's not modern technology that they
Oh
have,
yeah,
and
well,
it's
what is
before
that?
even
Yeah.
World War II, which also like messes me up in my brain a little bit because I have to remember this is the time period, not now.
Didn't exactly have cell phones on that island, did they? So Lena, what rating did you give this book?
I give it 4 stars. 4 shoes. 4 stars.
For shoes?
I don't know. I just said 4, so
For shirts?
4 shirts. Yeah. Anyway.
Which is interesting because I gave it 5.
Yeah, I gave it lower than you.
So very rarely do I rate a book higher than you.
Yes, this is very rare.
Very
Very
rare.
uncommon.
But I will admit that this might be one of those cases where the end of the book, because we mentioned it in passing, we're not going to give spoilers, but
Yep.
the very end of the book left me going, oh, which not always, but in this case, it definitely affected my overall view of the book, because the
Oh
book
yeah.
early on it can be a little slow.
Yeah,
could
it
be
was like
a little bit to get into, I think. This is audio. Nobody can see what you're doing
I
with
know,
your
I'm
fingers.
trying to figure out how much
She's
this
doing like
is.
that, like, to how far apart are my fingers.
Ow.
What did you do? You breaking things?
I think I was about 1/3 of the way through the book, and I was already reading it pretty slowly because it just wasn't like I mean, it was interesting because I was like, I don't know where on earth this book's gonna be going that well, but like it didn't hook me for probably around that much. So yeah, it was slow going. I read like I read like little under 2/3 of the book like today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, you read a good chunk of it today.
Yep.
So I gave it 5 stars, but I also know that if it wasn't for what I thought was an amazing ending, it might not have been quite so high.
Mhm.
Would you recommend this book to anyone?
Yes, people. Um,
People. Come on, people.
um,
That means you.
everyone. No, people. I don't know. I feel like 10 might be a little young, so I feel like 12 and up. But that I feel like it also depends on like maturity, maybe.
Yeah, I mean it's. I wouldn't say this is actually really a good book for younger kids for
Yeah.
10, 11 even. I mean I think because of the difficulties of the autistic girl,
Yeah.
and some stuff that happens there that is a little
Iffy.
vague.
Yeah. Vague.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that I could say, yeah, 12 and up,
Yeah.
maybe. But it's, I mean, we're not to say anything bad happens,
No.
but I mean, but then I also recommend it. I mean, I'm an adult and I really enjoyed it, so I would also recommend it for older teens and any adults who don't mind reading younger audience books that
Smart.
are interested in the synopsis.
Well, that's a wrap for Al Capone does our shirts.
Art is?
That's a wrap for Al Capone does your shirts. Well, that's a wrap for Al Capone does my shirts. Join us next time when we are going to be reviewing
My longtime favorite book, The Oath by Frank Peretti.
Yay.
Until next time, I'm Christy,
And I'm Lena.
and this is
Generation Gap Book Reviews.